Tony Stark's unforgettable night pictured this. Tony Stark, the genius billionaire, the guy who saved the world in a shiny suit, sitting under the harsh lights of a New York City talk show. Not some random studio, but the late Pulse, the kind of show where big names go to spill their guts or get torn apart. The crowd's buzzing, the cameras are rolling, and Tony's up against Jake Harper, a sharp-tongued journalist who's made a career out of shredding egos. This isn't about Iron Man. This is about Tony, the man behind the armor, and a night that'll change how millions see him. The hook? Jake thinks he's got Tony cornered with a question that'll make him squirm. He's wrong. Tony's about to tell a story that shuts down the room, leaves Jake speechless, and has everyone at home wiping their eyes. What's the story? Stick with me, because this one's going to hit you hard. So, the late Pulse is packed. Times Square's neon glow spills through the studio windows, and the audience is electric. Tony's in his element, sharp suit, sharper wit. Jake Harper's across from him, all smug with his notepad, ready to poke holes in Tony's larger-than-life persona. They've been going at it for 20 minutes. Tax policies, tech monopolies, Stark Industries' latest AI. Tony's handling it like a pro, tossing out quips that make the crowd laugh. But then Jake leans forward, eyes narrowing. You know that look. The one that says, "Now I'm coming for you." "Tony," Jake says, voice low, "you talk a lot about purpose. You've said you rebuilt your life after Afghanistan, found meaning in saving people. But let's cut the superhero crap. You're a guy who trusts science, data, cold hard facts. So why do you keep leaning at this faith thing like it's some guiding star? Faith's dying, man. People don't buy it anymore. Science has answers. Religion? It's just fairy tales for grown-ups." The crowd gasps. Tony doesn't flinch, but you can feel the air shift. Jake's not just challenging Tony's beliefs. He's calling out anyone who's ever clung to something bigger than themselves. The studio's dead quiet, waiting for Tony to fire back with a snarky one-liner. But he doesn't. He just smiles, a small, knowing smile that makes Jake shift in his seat. "Jake," Tony says, voice steady, "you think faith's a crutch? Let me ask you something. When the world falls apart, when your tech fails, when your numbers don't add up, when you're staring at a hospital bed and the doctors say there's nothing left to do, what do you hold on to?" Jake opens his mouth, but Tony's not done. It's easy to ditch faith when your life's all penthouses and private jets. But when the ground's gone, when you're free-falling, faith's the only thing that keeps you from hitting bottom. He pauses, locking eyes with Jake. "You want to know why I believe in it? Not because of some book or sermon, because of a woman named Clara." The crowd's frozen. Jake's pen stops moving. Even the cameraman looks up from his lens. "Clara? Who's Clara?" Tony leans back, and you can tell he's not in that studio anymore. He's somewhere else, years ago, in a moment that changed him. See, this isn't the Tony Stark you know from the movies, blasting aliens or cracking jokes. This is Tony before the Avengers, before the suit, when he was just a cocky tech mogul with too much money and not enough soul. He was at a charity event in Brooklyn, one of those things rich guys go to for good PR. He was supposed to shake hands, smile for the cameras, and get out. But then he met Clara, a 70-year-old woman with a voice so soft it could break your heart. She'd lost everything, Tony says, his voice catching just enough to make you lean in. Her son to a car accident, her daughter to cancer. Her husband walked out when she needed him most. No family, no savings, just her and a tiny apartment in Bed-Stuy. But there she was, serving coffee to strangers, asking me how my day was going. The studio's so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Jake staring, not even pretending to take notes. Tony's eyes are distant, like he's seeing Clara right there in front of him. I asked her how she did it, how she kept going when life took everything. You know what she said? "Faith isn't about proof, Tony. It's about waking up every morning and believing there is still something worth fighting for." That's the moment, the climax of this first part. You can feel the weight of Clara's words, the way they hit Tony like a freight train. Jake's got nothing to say. The crowd's holding their breath. And you, watching this at home, you are wondering, how's this going to play out? What's Tony going to do with this? Here's the thing, Tony's not done. This is just the start. Clara's story is about to unravel something bigger, something that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about faith, about Tony, about yourself. But before we dive deeper, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss where this goes. The weight of Clara's words. You didn't think Tony Stark could get to you like that, did you? Last time we left off with him dropping Clara's story like a bomb on the late pulse. The whole studio, Jake Harper, the crowd, even the guy running the lights, was stunned. Clara, the 70-year-old woman from Brooklyn, had Tony, the king of snark, choking up over her faith. But here's where it gets real. Tony's not just telling a story to win a debate. He's peeling back layers of himself, and what's underneath is going to hit you harder than you expect. Back in that Times Square studio, the air's thick. Jake Harper's gripping his notepad like it's a lifeline, but he's got no comeback. Tony's words about Clara, her losses, her quiet strength, her faith, are still ringing in everyone's ears. The crowd's leaning forward, hanging on what's next. Tony could stop there, crack a joke, and move on. That's what old Tony would have done. But this Tony, he's not playing games. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and looks straight at Jake. You think Clara's just a feel-good story, Jake? Some random lady I met at a charity gig? His voice is low, almost a whisper, but it carries. Let me tell you what happened after I met her, because that's when I got it. Really got it. The camera zooms in on Tony's face. You can see the lines around his eyes, the weight he's carrying. He's not Iron Man right now. He's just a guy who's seen something he can't unsee. I went back to that Brooklyn Community Center a week later, he says. Not for PR, not for cameras. I just needed to see her again. Needed to understand how someone could lose so much and still shine like that. He paints the scene. A beat-up community center in Bed-Stuy, folding chairs, a coffee pot that's seen better days. Clara's there, same as before, pouring drinks for folks who've got nowhere else to go. Tony walks in, no suit this time, just a hoodie and jeans. He's trying to blend in, but come on, it's Tony Stark. People notice, except Clara. She just hands him a cup of coffee, smiles and says, "Back so soon, kid?" Kid, she called Tony Stark kid. The crowd chuckles, but it's a soft laugh, the kind that comes from feeling something deep. Tony's voice softens too. I sat with her for an hour that day. She didn't talk about her pain, didn't complain. She told me about her son, how he loved drawing comics. Her daughter, how she'd sing off-key but light up a room. Her husband, how he used to dance with her in their tiny kitchen. Tony pauses, and you can feel the studio holding its breath. Then I asked her again, how do you do it, Clara? How do you keep going when life's kicked you down over and over? He swallows, and for a second, you think he might not keep it together. She looked at me right in the eyes and said, Tony, faith isn't about getting what you want. It's about trusting there's a reason you're still here, even when you can't see it. Boom, that's the moment that cracks the room open. Jake's staring at the floor. A woman in the crowd wipes her eyes. Even the host, who's usually itching to cut to commercial, just sits there. Clara's words aren't just words. They're a lifeline, the kind you grab when everything else falls apart. But Tony's not done. He leans back, voice steady now. You want to talk facts, Jake? Here's one. That day, Clara gave me more than coffee. She gave me a reason to rethink everything, my company, my life, why I do what I do. And I'm not the only one. There's 1,000 Claras out there, people who've lost it all, but keep going because they believe in something bigger. Jake finally finds his voice. That's powerful, Tony, he says, but his usual edge is gone. But come on, isn't that just coping? People like Clara lean on faith because they're desperate. It's not truth. It's comfort. Tony shakes his head, a small smile creeping in. Comfort's not a dirty word, Jake. In faith, it's not about desperation. It's about strength. Clara's stronger than I'll ever be, and I've fought aliens in a metal suit. The crowd laughs, but it's different now. It's not just Tony being funny. It's them feeling something real. Jake's got nothing left to throw. He's not debating anymore. He's listening. And so are you. Here's a question for you guys watching. Has someone like Clara ever walked into your life? Someone who changed how you see things? Drop it in the comments because I know you've got stories. And if you're feeling this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Tony's breaking point. Tony Stark's got the late Pulse studio in a chokehold. Clara's story, her faith, her strength, already shook Jake Harper in the crowd. Now Tony's digging deeper. Clara wasn't just a story, he says, voice low. She changed me. He tells of nights at the Bed-Stuy Community Center, feeling empty despite his wealth. One evening, he spilled his doubts to Clara. She stopped stacking chairs, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Tony, faith's about letting go and trusting you're enough." The crowd's crying, Jake's speechless. Tony's voice cracks. "That's why I built the suit. Clara made me Iron Man." The studio erupts, people standing, sobbing. Tony's not just a hero, he's a man reshaped by faith. Ever met someone who flipped your world? Share it in the comments. Smash that subscribe button for what's next. Fighting for Clara. Tony's story about Clara's hit the late Pulse like a storm. The Times Square crowd still reeling as he leans in. "Clara didn't just inspire me," he says. "She needed me." He recalls finding her shaken. Her landlord was jacking up her Bed-Stuy rent, threatening her home. "I bought the building," Tony says, fire in his eyes. "Set up a fund for her, for the community center. Clara deserved peace, Wah." The crowd is on their feet, cheering through tears. Jake's stunned. "Why now, Tony?" he asks. Tony looks at the camera. "Because people are watching, feeling like they're not enough. Clara told me you are. Keep fighting." Who's fought for you when you couldn't? Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe to keep up. Clara's letter. Tony's got the late Pulse crowd in tears, Jake Harper out of words. He pulls out a worn letter from Clara, written before she got sick. "She didn't know I'd keep this," Tony says, voice thick. He reads, "Tony, keep believing in people, even when they don't believe in themselves." The studio's sobbing. Clara's faith started everything, he says. Scholarships, shelters, clinics. Stark Industries is hers now. Jake's voice is soft. Is it truth or coping? Tony smiles. "It's strength. It's why I fight." The crowd roars, chanting Tony's name. Clara's spark is burning bright. Has a moment changed your life? Share in the comments. Smash subscribe for more. Clara's last words in a world awakened. You ever have a moment that feels like it's bigger than you, bigger than anything you've ever known? That's what's happening on the late Pulse right now. Tony Stark's story about Clara, a 70-year-old woman from Bed-Stuy who turned him into Iron Man, has the Times Square studio in pieces. Jake Harper's out of fight, the crowd's a mess of tears and cheers, and millions at home are hanging on every word. Tony just read Clara's letter, the one that changed his life, and you're probably still wiping your eyes. But hold on, because Tony's about to take this somewhere that'll shake you to your core. The studio's buzzing, the air thick with emotion. Jake's staring at Tony, his notepad abandoned, his usual smirk replaced by something softer, almost haunted. The host is gripping his chair, trying to keep the show on track, but nobody's listening to him. The crowd's still reeling from Clara's words. Keep believing in people, even when they don't believe in themselves. Tony's sitting there, the folded letter back in his pocket, his face a mix of grief and fire. He could walk away now, let the moment land, and be the hero of the night. But Tony Stark doesn't do half measures. He's got more to say, and it's gonna hit like a tidal wave. "Jake," Tony says, his voice low but heavy, like it's carrying years of pain. "You keep asking why faith matters. Let me tell you what happened after Clara wrote that letter." He leans forward, and the studio goes so quiet you can hear the faint hum of the cameras. "She got sick, heart failure. I threw everything at it. Best doctors, private jets to specialists. Every dime I had, but Clara, she just looked at me with that same soft smile and said, 'Tony, you can't fix this. Just keep doing what I told you. Believe in people.'" The crowd's frozen. A woman in the front row covers her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Jake's jaw tightens, like he's fighting to keep it together. Tony's voice cracks, just for a second, and it's like a knife in your chest. I was with her at the end, he says, staring past the lights, past the cameras, like he's back in that moment. A tiny hospital room in Brooklyn, machines beeping, her hands so small in mine. She wasn't scared. She looked at me, squeezed my hand, and said, "You're gonna be okay, kid. Just don't stop fighting." Then she was gone. That's the moment. The studio breaks, sobs echo from every corner. People hugging strangers, some just staring at Tony like they're seeing a ghost. The host is wiping his eyes with his sleeve, not even pretending to run the show. Jake's hands are clasped tight, his head bowed, like he's carrying Clara's loss too. Tony wipes his eyes quick, almost angry, like he's mad at himself for letting it show. But it's too late. You're a mess, I'm a mess, everyone watching is a mess. Clara's not just a name. She's every person you've loved and lost, and every voice that told you to keep going. Tony takes a shaky breath, his voice steadier now, but still raw. I thought I'd lose it after she passed. Thought I'd go back to being that empty guy in a penthouse. But Clara's letter, her words, they wouldn't let me, and then something happened. He looks out at the crowd, a spark lighting up his eyes. People started talking. Not just in Brooklyn, but everywhere. Some old interview where I mentioned Clara got dug up went viral. Hashtag Clara's faith started trending. Posts, videos, stories from people I've never met. A single mom in Detroit saying her kid's smile keeps her going. A veteran in Texas talking about his buddy who never gave up. A teacher in Philly who said her students are her faith. The crowd's nodding, some pulling out their phones, scrolling through hashtag Clara's faith posts right there. Jake's eyes widen, like he's hearing this for the first time. Tony keeps going, his voice stronger now. I got thousands of emails. One hit me hard. A woman named Sarah from Chicago wrote, "I lost my son to addiction last year. I gave up on everything. But hearing you talk about Clara made me want to try again. I'm starting a support group for other moms like me." Tony pauses, letting that sink in. That's what faith does, Jake. It's not about proof or logic. It's a chain reaction. Clara's gone, but she's still out there. In Sarah, in those moms, in every person who heard her story and chose to keep fighting. He leans back, exhausted but alive, like he's just run a marathon. The studio erupts, louder than ever. Cheers, sobs, people shouting, "Clara!" Like she's standing right there. Jake finally speaks, his voice hoarse. "Tony, I've been a journalist for 20 years. I've grilled presidents, CEOs, you name it. But this?" He shakes his head, a small smile breaking through. "This is different. I need to sit with what you said." The crowd roars again, not for a win, but for something rarer. Honesty. This isn't just a talk show anymore. It's a spark that's catching fire, and Tony's at the heart of it. But what happens when the cameras stop? What does this mean for him, for the world? Hey, you guys, who's your Clara? Who's the person who kept you going when you were ready to quit? Drop it in the comments. I'm reading everyone, and I know they'd mean the world to Tony too. If this story's got you hooked, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the end. The legacy that lives on. You ever see a moment so big it feels like it could change the world? That's what Tony Stark's done on The Late Pulse. Clara's story, her faith, her heart, turned a talk show into a movement. The Times Square studio's been a roller coaster of tears and cheers. Jake Harper's a changed man, and hashtag Clara's faith is lighting up the internet from Brooklyn to Beijing. Tony's bared his soul, and now, in this final moment, he's about to leave us with something we'll never forget. Grab a tissue, because this one's going to break you open. The studio's electric, the crowd still buzzing from Tony's last words about Clara's death, and the global wave of hashtag Clara's faith. People are hugging, crying, scrolling through posts on their phones. Jake's leaning back, his tough guy mask gone, just listening like he's seeing Tony for the first time. The host is a wreck, waving off producers who want to cut to commercial, his eyes red and puffy. Tony's sitting there, drained but steady, like a man who's finally said what he's been carrying for years. But he's not done. Not yet. He's got one last thing to say, and it's going to hit you like nothing else. Tony stands up, the first time all night, and the crowd goes dead silent. The studio lights catch the resolve in his eyes, the kind of look you'd see before he flies into battle. "Jake," he says, voice strong but warm, "you asked me why faith matters. I've told you about Clara, her losses, her letter, the people she's inspired. But here's the real deal. Faith isn't just a story or a feeling. It's a choice. Every single day, you choose to believe in bonding, in people, in yourself. And that choice, it's what holds the world together when everything else falls apart." He steps forward, his voice rising, filling the room. "Clara chose to believe even when life took her son, her daughter, her everything. She chose to see me, a screwed-up guy with too much money and not enough heart, and tell me I was enough. Because of her, I chose to be Iron Man, not for headlines or glory, but for every person out there who's fighting to get up one more time." The crowd's on their feet, roaring, sobbing, clapping so loud the windows shake. A woman in the front row hugs her teenage son, both crying. The host throws his hands up, giving up on the show's schedule. Tony turns to the audience, his voice cutting through the noise. "Right now, people are watching, moms who've lost kids, veterans who've seen too much, kids who think they're not enough. I'm telling you what Clara told me. You are enough. Choose faith, whatever it looks like for you, and you're not just surviving, you're changing the world." His words land like a thunderclap, and the studio loses it. People are shouting, "Clara, Clara," like she's right there, her spirit filling the room. Jake stands, something nobody saw coming, and offers Tony his hand. "Tony," he says, voice raw, "I came here to tear you down. I'm leaving. Different. Thank you." The crowd roars again, not for a debate won, but for a bridge built. Tony shakes his hand, then looks straight at the camera, right into your eyes. "This isn't about me," he says. "It's about Clara, about all the Claras out there. Find them, listen to them, believe in them. Because faith, it's love in action." The studio's a blur now, hugs, tears, chants. The screens behind Tony light up with Clara's faith posts pouring in. A nurse in Miami sharing how her patient's hope kept her going. A teacher in Seattle talking about a student who never gave up. A grandpa in Ohio saying his wife's faith carried their family through cancer. It's not just a moment, it's a wave, sweeping across the world. Tony sits back down, spent but glowing, like he's finally free. The show ends, but the story's just beginning. Outside, Times Square is alive. People gathered, sharing their own #Clara's Faith stories, holding signs, crying together. Social media is exploding, not with fights, but with hope. A firefighter in Dallas posts about his partner who saved a kid from a burning building. A single dad in Atlanta shares how his daughter's laugh keeps him going. And Tony? He's back in his Manhattan penthouse, alone but not lonely, reading an email from a 12-year-old girl in Brooklyn. "Dear Mr. Stark," it says, "I want to be like Clara when I grow up. I'm going to help people just like you." He reads it twice, a tear rolling down his cheek, and whispers, "You already are, kid." Clara's gone, but her faith is everywhere, in every story, every heart, every choice to keep going. Tony didn't just tell a story, he started a fire that'll burn for years. And if you're feeling it, if Clara's spark lit something in you, don't let it fade. What's your #Clara's Faith story? Who's inspired you to choose hope? Drop it into the comments. I'm reading every single one, and I know they'd mean everything to Clara. Subscribe now to catch our next video.